sometimes the quietest characters carry the deepest emotions. That's exactly the case with Francesca Bridgerton. While she's often been in the background of the Bridgerton story, Season 4 finally pulls her into the spotlight, and her journey might just become the most moving of all. Her path is different from her siblings. There's no loud drama, no flamboyant entrances. Instead, her story is filled with quiet choices, hidden doubts, and a longing for something real. And as Season 4 unfolds, Francesca steps into the world of romance, not with fireworks, but with calm strength, and that makes her story even more powerful. Francesca has always been the most private Bridgerton. While Daphne found love through a whirlwind courtship, and Anthony battled between duty and desire, Francesca's approach to life and love is softer, more internal. She doesn't seek attention, and that makes her stand out in a family filled with bold personalities. In Season 4, we finally see her being introduced to society, and it's clear she's not completely comfortable in the spotlight. Her calm, reserved energy is different from the usual debutante excitement. But even in the grand ballrooms of the Ton, Francesca's eyes are searching for something deeper than just a husband. She's looking for a real connection. Enter John Sterling. Unlike many of the suitors chasing fortune or fame, John is quiet, composed, and grounded just like Francesca. Their connection doesn't explode, it builds gently, a soft glance, a quiet conversation, shared silences. In a world full of grand gestures, their relationship stands out because of its subtlety. And yet, there's a strong emotional undercurrent running through every moment they share. Francesca doesn't want to fall in love because it's expected of her. She wants to fall in love on her own terms. With John, she feels safe enough to let her guard down. But even then, she's not without hesitation behind her calm face. Francesca is wrestling with a silent battle between family expectations and personal truth. She knows what's expected of her. The Bridgertons have a name to protect, a legacy to continue. Her siblings have married well, now it's her turn, but Francesca is different. She doesn't care for society games or dramatic love stories. What she wants is a quiet, honest life. And while John seems like the right man for her, Francesca still wonders, will marrying him mean losing a piece of herself? Or will she finally get to be who she truly is? This internal conflict shapes every step of her journey in Season 4. Even as she moves forward with John, she holds part of herself back. It's not about fear, it's about identity. Francesca wants to be loved for who she is, not who she's expected to be. The pressure builds as her family, especially Violet, pushes her toward marriage. Violet wants happiness for her daughter, but she also wants her to do things the proper way. Francesca, however, has always walked her own path, and that independence starts to show more clearly this season. The beauty of Francesca's arc lies in the quiet tension. Unlike her siblings' stories, hers doesn't rely on loud arguments or public scandals. Instead, we see her thinking, observing, slowly allowing herself to trust. And as her bond with John grows stronger, we see a new side of her, a woman who's learning to express emotion, to open up, to fall in love without losing herself. Her softness is not weakness, it's her strength. She doesn't shout to be heard, she simply stays true to herself, and in doing so, she becomes one of the most emotionally rich characters of the entire season. By the end of the season, Francesca makes a choice not out of duty, but out of love. She decides to be with John not because society says so, but because her heart does. It's a powerful moment of quiet triumph. In a world where appearances often matter more than feelings, Francesca dares to choose peace, honesty, and emotional connection. And that makes her journey unforgettable. She might have started as the quiet Bridgerton, but by the end of Season 4, Francesca proves that the strongest voices are sometimes the ones that speak softly. Benedict Bridgerton has always been the dreamer in the family, the one who looks at the world with an artist's eye and a rebel's heart. He doesn't follow the rules of high society. He questions them. He doesn't chase titles or attention. He wants freedom, meaning, and something more than what the Ton can offer. But in Season 4, Benedict's charming smile begins to fade, replaced by a deeper struggle. This time, it's not about what he wants to do, but who he truly is. And for the first time, Benedict is no longer able to hide behind his wit or his paintings. From the beginning, Benedict has been portrayed as the in-between. Bridgerton, not the heir, not the main focus, but the one searching for where he fits in. He's always had space to breathe, to wonder, to avoid the pressure his older brother Anthony carried. But now, with more of his siblings finding love and purpose, the walls are closing in. The family expects him to follow suit, to find a wife, to step up, but Benedict's heart beats for something else: freedom, art, truth. And in season 4, we see how heavy it is to carry a soul that doesn't match the world around it. Benedict's journey takes a serious turn this season as he begins to question what he truly wants. It's not just about romance anymore, it's about identity. The playful flirtations and carefree attitude that once defined him now feel shallow. He's looking for something real. And that search becomes even more intense when a new figure enters his life, a mysterious woman who challenges everything he thought he knew about love. She's bold, clever, and not at all interested in being someone's proper match. With her, Benedict feels alive again. But with that spark comes confusion. Their connection isn't simple. It doesn't fit the mold of a typical love story in The Ton. She's not from the aristocracy, and their relationship brings whispers and raised eyebrows. For Benedict, this brings him back to familiar pain memories of Sophie Beckett, the woman he once loved but couldn't be with because of class barriers. Now, history seems to be repeating itself, and he's forced to ask a hard question. Is he brave enough this time to choose love over society's expectations? This emotional weight follows Benedict throughout the season. He becomes more withdrawn, lost in thought, and even starts to distance himself from his art. What once brought him joy now feels hollow. His sketches, once full of color and passion, now look unfinished, as if they're missing something. That's because they are. Benedict is no longer inspired by fantasy. He wants truth. He wants his life to feel like his own, not a performance. For the Bridgerton name, the pressure from Violet also grows heavier this season. She sees Benedict's restlessness and fears he's drifting too far. She gently nudges him towards suitable matches, hoping to guide him before he's too lost in dreams. But her attempts only push him further into doubt. He starts to wonder, was he ever meant for this world? For the balls, the titles, the smiling masks? Or was he meant for something entirely different? Even Colin and Anthony, once distracted by their own dramas, begin to notice Benedict's change. There are quiet moments between brothers where words aren't needed, just shared looks that say, "I see you." These scenes are powerful because for all their differences, the Bridgerton brothers understand the weight of duty and the pain of denying who you are. And in these moments, Benedict realizes he's not as alone as he thought, but the turning point in Benedict's art comes when he's forced to make a choice, a public event, a chance to stand beside a suitable match and silence the rumors, or a chance to walk away from all of it and follow his heart wherever it may lead. The choice is heavy and the stakes are high, but this time Benedict doesn't hesitate. He chooses authenticity, he chooses truth, and in that moment the rebellious artist finally becomes a man not by following rules, but by breaking free from them. By the end of season 4, Benedict's journey doesn't have a neat ending. There's no perfect match, no wedding bells, but there's clarity, there's courage. He's no longer afraid of being different. He knows that love for him might not look like a Bridgerton fairy tale, and that's okay. Because his story isn't about fitting in, it's about standing out. And as he picks up his brush once again, Benedict isn't painting for others anymore. He's finally painting his own life. Eloise Bridgerton has never been the kind of woman to follow the crowd. From the very beginning, she stood out not just for her sharp tongue and strong opinions, but for her refusal to be shaped by society's rules. While other young women in the Ton chase titles and talk about gowns, Eloise dreams of independence, knowledge, and a world far beyond the ballroom. But in season 4, even the boldest rebel finds herself at a crossroads. This time, it's not just about resisting the marriage market, it's about figuring out who she really is when everything around her starts to change. Eloise has always pushed back against what's expected of her. Her friendship with Penelope once gave her a sense of freedom, someone who understood what it meant to feel out of place in the glittering world of the ton. But after discovering that Penelope was Lady Whistledown, that friendship shattered, leaving Eloise feeling more betrayed than ever. That heartbreak still lingers as season 4 begins. She's lost her closest ally, and with it, the safe space where she could truly be herself. Now she's surrounded by siblings moving forward, falling in love, getting married, finding their paths while she stands still, unsure of what comes next. This feeling of isolation deepens her internal struggle. She's always believed that she didn't need romance to be fulfilled. But as she watches Francesca begin a quiet but meaningful love story, and sees Colin and Penelope's relationship evolve, a silent question creeps in. What if I've been wrong? What if love doesn't have to mean losing herself? What if there's a version of love that doesn't involve surrender but partnership? Still, Eloise isn't the type to jump into romance just because others are doing it. Her journey is different. She begins exploring new spaces, more time spent in bookshops, intellectual gatherings, and quiet corners of society where ideas are shared instead of titles. These scenes show us a different kind of Bridgerton story, one built not on courtship, but curiosity. She meets people outside of her social circle, writers, thinkers, women with sharp minds and strong voices. For the first time, Eloise finds herself in rooms where she doesn't feel like the odd one out. One of the most intriguing parts of her story this season is the subtle development of a new relationship, not a grand love story, but a quiet connection, with someone who sees her not as a Bridgerton or a debutante, but as a person with a mind of her own. Whether this person becomes a romantic interest or remains a close friend is unclear, but that's what makes it beautiful. For Eloise, the relationship isn't about labels, it's about trust, understanding, and the freedom to be her full self. This emotional bond helps her slowly lower her walls, not by pressure but by choice. Eloise begins to open up. She also starts healing the broken parts inside her, especially the wound left by Penelope's betrayal. There are moments of reflection where she remembers their shared laughter, their secrets, their plans to escape the expectations of society together. Despite her pain, Eloise begins to understand that people can be complicated. That betrayal doesn't always mean someone is beyond forgiveness. She may not be ready to rebuild that friendship just yet, but there's a softening, a recognition that maybe someday they could find their way back to each other. What makes Eloise's arc in Season 4 so powerful is that it doesn't revolve around a romance or a dramatic twist. It's about growth, the slow, uncomfortable, deeply personal kind. It's about realizing that being strong doesn't mean staying angry forever, and that independence doesn't mean pushing everyone away. Eloise starts to understand that she can shape her own version of happiness, one that may or may not include love, but will always include self-respect. There are also some standout scenes where Eloise confronts her family not in rage, but in honesty. She questions the world they live in, the roles they play, and the pressure placed on women to fit into boxes. But instead of shouting, she speaks with calm conviction. Her mother, Violet, begins to see her in a new light, not just as a difficult daughter, but as a woman carving her own way. Even Anthony and Colin, once unsure of how to handle her defiance, start to respect her strength. These moments aren't loud, but they're full of emotion, showing how far Eloise has come from the girl who once rolled her eyes at everything. By the end of the season, Eloise hasn't found her place in the way society might define it, but she's found something better herself. She no longer feels lost watching her siblings fall in love because she's no longer measuring her life by their choices. She's discovered that there's more than one way to live, more than one way to love, and more than one way to be a Bridgerton. Her journey is still unfolding, but she's finally walking it with confidence. In a world obsessed with appearances, Eloise dares to live by her truth, and that makes her story not only inspiring but necessary. Because while the ton may not know what to do with a woman like Eloise, the world is finally starting to make space for voices like hers. 3 siblings. 3 hearts filled with questions, fears, and dreams. Francesca, Benedict and Eloise may each be walking their own path in Season 4, but beneath the surface, their stories are quietly connected. What makes this season truly powerful isn't just what happens to each of them, it's how their emotional journeys collide, overlap, and challenge the very foundation of what it means to be a Bridgerton. Love, identity, freedom, they're all chasing something different. But in doing so, they begin to reflect parts of one another. And through that reflection, the cracks in the Bridgerton family's picture-perfect image begin to show. But so does something even more beautiful, growth for Francesca. Her story begins with silence and almost invisible presence in the early seasons, but in Season 4, she becomes a voice of gentle rebellion. While she chooses to marry, she does it on her own terms, not for status or pressure, but for calm and connection. Her relationship with John is not loud, but deeply felt. In contrast, Benedict is slipping into a quiet storm. His charm fades into self-doubt. His artwork becomes a mirror for his inner world, unfinished, full of questions. He's surrounded by expectations, yet longs to be free. And then there's Eloise, standing at the edge of society, torn between anger and discovery, learning that independence isn't the absence of love, but the presence of self. What's striking is how their choices subtly impact one another. When Francesca decides to follow her heart quietly, it unsettles Benedict. He wonders why love seems so natural for her while he struggles to even define what it means to him. He sees her find peace while he's drowning in uncertainty. But instead of envy, this stirs something deeper: reflection. He begins to realize that love doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be quiet, steady, and still meaningful. Francesca's courage gives him permission to chase his own truth, not the one society wants from him. Eloise, on the other hand, watches both her siblings navigate romance while she pulls away from it entirely. But their experiences create emotional echoes she can't ignore. Francesca's calmness makes her question her own harshness. Benedict's turmoil feels oddly familiar. Like him, she doesn't want to be trapped. Like him, she's searching for something more than what's expected. Their shared sense of not fitting in becomes a silent bond, one that's never spoken but deeply understood. It's in the way they glance at each other during family dinners, in the way their conversations shift from jokes to real vulnerability. For the first time, Eloise realizes she's not the only one who feels like an outsider in a world that praises perfection. There's a beautiful moment in the season where all three find themselves alone in the garden, after a family gathering. No grand speeches, no dramatic music, just silence, the night air, and the weight of unspoken emotions. Francesca, recently married, unsure if she's truly free. Benedict, struggling with his art and his place in the family. Eloise, feeling lost, but not alone. They don't solve anything that night. But they do something more important. They see each other, not as the perfect Bridgertons they're expected to be, but as people, flawed, searching, brave. The season subtly pulls their arcs together through shared themes. Francesca's quiet rebellion mirrors Benedict's artistic defiance. Benedict's longing for meaning mirrors Eloise's need for purpose. And Eloise's emotional walls reflect the restraint Francesca is trying to break through. Each sibling becomes a kind of emotional compass for the others even without realizing it. They challenge, inspire, and ground one another in different ways. And this layered storytelling is what makes Bridgerton Season 4 more than just romance. It's a deep dive into family dynamics, into how personal growth can either pull a family apart or stitch it closer than ever before. Their mother, Violet, plays a quiet but essential role in this emotional crossroad. She's proud of her children, but also afraid. Afraid they'll go too far off course. Afraid they'll hurt themselves trying to find happiness on their own terms. But as she watches each of them struggle and shine in their own way, she begins to understand that the Bridgerton legacy doesn't lie in titles or perfect matches, it lies in authenticity. Her journey is also one of letting go, allowing her children to step into lives that may look unfamiliar, but are deeply true to who they are. By the time the season ends, nothing is perfectly resolved. Francesca still has doubts, Benedict still carries questions, Eloise still walks a lonely but brave road. But they are no longer walking alone. Their emotional threads are now woven together, not just by blood, but by empathy. And that makes all the difference. Season 4 doesn't give us the usual fairy tale ending for every character. Instead, it offers something far more real. It shows us that even in a family known for elegance, charm, and romance, there are shadows, struggles, and growing pains. It shows us that love can be quiet, freedom can be complicated, and identity isn't always clear-cut. Francesca, Benedict, and Eloise each take a different route, but they all arrive at the same truth, that life is messy, and that's okay. In the end, their emotional journeys aren't just personal, they're collective. They shape the heart of the Bridgerton family, and in doing so, they remind us that behind the beautiful gowns, sparkling ballrooms, and social gossip, the real magic lies in the quiet, complicated, and deeply human moments between siblings who are learning to love both others and themselves.